Hey everybody, I just noticed I don't have a front page. So I'm gonna have to look at you from this little corner. Hey guys, welcome. Welcome to Minnesota, Duluth again. I'm here again. And this week I'll be heading, actually tomorrow I'll be heading up to Grand Marais to do a plein air event. And so right now we're here in Duluth, Minnesota, and I'm gonna be doing this scene, which is from Grand Marais. When I was up there last weekend, I was up there, and so I'm coming back, came back here to Duluth, and now I will be heading back up there tomorrow and starting the plein air event. And so this is going to be a fun one to do this year. Hopefully, we're getting a little bit better weather than we had the last couple of days because we had a little bit of rain, but it's still fine. We're getting great skies, and so this is what you're seeing right here. And sorry, I didn't have a front page to talk to you, but here we're going to be testing a house Brut Bubbles wine, the original house wine, carbonated wine, bubbly, crisp, vibrant. That's all I could find. So we're gonna try this out. Now I don't have a wine glass, but I do have a regular glass, and so bubbly. And so we're gonna try this and see. It's basically it looks like champagne. So it says equal to 2 glasses of 6 ounce glasses of or of wine. And I do have a lot more light here this week, and so I hope it doesn't cast too much of a shadow, but it is, I guess. We'll see what we can do for that. So cheers, everybody. It's champagne. It tastes pretty good. I'm gonna give that a 9.0. A nine paintbrush. All right, so let's go and again, I'm sitting on this page already, but let me just go first to my supplies. And so the supplies we're using today are my Holbein paints, of course, my Holbein watercolor brushes, my Becker Art brushes, and we are using Stonehenge paper today. And so hopefully everything is sounding okay here, and maybe the light is a little bright, but I think it's going to work a little bit better than last week when we were here too. And so our website, of course, is my davidarbecker.com. David R. Becker, don't forget the R, or beckerart.net. Either one will take you to this site. And this is where you pick up the image right there. And that image, there's the image we're painting today. If you click on that, it takes you to another page. And then from there, you download it and then you can use it. All right. And so let's go to our value pattern. And so this is the thing that's most important. And I'll be teaching a class, a mini workshop. It's 3 hours long in Grand Marais this weekend. Or I think next Monday. Next Monday we're doing that one. And I'm bringing everybody a pad of paper, and I am going to use a pencil, a barrel pencil. What's it called? It's a really dark pencil. And what everybody's going to be doing, and you can do this yourself, is go out and do a value pattern. A value pattern, a very small thumbnail that looks like this, black and white, and just decide on what your values are going to be. Now, I just noticed as I was looking at this earlier today is that I'm not going to make the clouds that dark, and I shouldn't have. I think I was looking at it and thinking that these are going to be dark, and then the light's just right in the middle here. But as I took a double look at it, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to make it more like where these grays, because it's the grays of the clouds, are going to be more into the lighter side, so that the sky is still going to be light, not as dark as the darks that you see on the side. And I think that makes a better pattern so that the whole sky is light, the water is light, and then down here, let me just show you down here. I'm going to keep this the same lightness as the clouds so that it basically my darks will be through the middle here and here. And I think that would make a better value pattern, like here, through here, and here's my darks, and let this be the light, because right now what I'm doing is the lights are going through here, which can also work, but I don't want to make the clouds that dark, a value, like it would be the value of, and which you never do anyways. I mean, you kind of decide on if the grays are going to be either towards the light or the dark part of the scene. And I think by having the whole sky light will make it much better for my value pattern. The simpler the value pattern, like this is a really complicated because there's a lot of little light dots through there. So if I think I make it easier by making this all light, light, and then down here, the light in there. So, and I'm not talking about this going to be light. It's going to be basically, there'll be a gray, but it's going to be lighter than the darkest light. And so then I'm going to put that into the light area, and then this part right here, this green will be in the dark, this background will be in the dark, and the side of this wall will be the dark. And that's what is a better, easier value pattern. Because the easier the value pattern, the simpler the value pattern, the nicer your paintings are going to be. I guarantee you, it's just one of those things. Look around and look at paintings, and you'll see that the simplest value patterns are always the nicest. All right, so here we go. Let's go back to our desktop and we're gonna start painting here. And let me see if there's anybody here to even listen to me. And I've got to look around my camera, sorry. Hey, Pat and PU Urban. Hello from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Nice to meet you. And here we go. Let me see what we have to here. We have to skip this. Let me go right to here. Okay, so I know oh man, I have a big shadow on there, don't I? Let's see well, it's gonna have to be. It's the only thing I have. It's I this as I brought in a light so that, and I can't put it in the front because then I get the cameras shined on there all the time. So this will have to do. It's not my studio, so it's a little bit more complicated to set up. You know what? Let me see if I can put it on this side. Oh, no, I can't because it's a cord. Sorry, it's gonna have to be that. And so let me wet the surface because I'm gonna do the sky all with one wash with the water and right down into the water that's gonna be here. And so I'm just gonna take my big brush, which seems to be dirty already. And I'm using 300-pound Stonehenge. A really super, super lovely paper. I love this paper. My favorite. I didn't mount it to anything yet. Um, I usually don't mount it when I'm doing these shows, these little. So I'm just wetting everywhere where it's going to be light, because that's what you do. And the Becquerel three-step, remember, you always go from light to dark to detail. Light to dark to details. And actually, the step one is your lights and also your color scheme. You kind of figure that out right in the get-go, in the beginning here. And then the second step is to go then to do our large mediums and large darks. And then the final step is your detailed darks and your detailed lights. It's the same steps I do for everything I do. And so now it's all wet, and also I'm talking here a little bit, so I let it soak in a little bit so that it gets time to go into the paper and keep it, and that way it keeps it wet a little bit longer. All right, and so I am going to use some blues, and now to get the lights coming through that, I still want that. I still would like the light to shine through like that, but I'm going to keep the the clouds not quite as dark as I had them in the value study because it doesn't need to be that dark. 'Cause that's not part of the darks of the sky is basically light. And so I don't want to make it so dark that it makes the darks as dark as these rocks in here that are dark. I want to make it pushed back. And then I can also make these darker. If I want to make these clouds a little bit darker, I would make them a little bit darker by making these rocks darker so that the pattern still is dark up there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a big amount of pigment, and I'm going to get those, because the light basically, excuse me, the light part is pretty much white right in through here. I mean, there's a little bit of warmth down here. So I'll take a little bit of pink and maybe throw a little bit of pink right here. A little bit of jaune number 2. And it's a little bit of pink that's shining through back there because the sun is about, well, the sun's up here. And so back here it is a little bit of pinkness to it. And then there's a little bit of yellow, very slight bit of yellow up here. And that's way too bright a yellow, so I'm going to dull it down with a little bit of white or gray on gray. I love this gray on gray. It's a gray color, and it just dulls things down a little bit. And that's, see how it's still yellow, but just And see, now I know how much, I didn't use much paint pigment there, so it didn't go very, it went all over the place. So if I use it a little bit thicker, I use that is lavender right there, and this is Verditor blue. Verditor blue is a pretty nice blue for this, and so I'm just going to go in there and make it pretty thick. And my page is wet, so I can create those. And I don't put lines in for the clouds. I don't like doing that because then you have pencil lines up there. Hey, Carol from Chicago. And who else do we have down here? Hold on, let me just see. I can't see through my camera. And we got the Great Cat 213. I spent half my life on that lake. Have you ever painted the witch's tree that grows out of the rocks on the shore in that area, Robbie? I think it's the one you're talking about is the one that's it's like a crooked tree. It comes right out. I think it's actually in this picture. No, that's a different part. That's at Artist Point, I think is what you're talking about. The Artist Point one. There's a tree there that's like kind of crooked and it's coming out of the rocks. It's very cool. Mm. I was thinking about that. I'm glad it's still there, if that's the tree you're talking about. It's a really cool tree. And here I'm putting a little gray in there. And see how I'm letting the water soften my edges. And the edges are not really soft here, so I'm kind of using pure pigment. And I'm taking like Verditor pure almost. And putting a little gray into it. I'm just using this gray on gray, which is actually a gray color, which you can make yourself by using black with a little bit of white. And so I'm gonna mix a little bit of, or you can go with a little bit of orange to make it a little warm gray, and then just put it on thick because it has to be thicker so that you can guide the edges to where you want the edges to go. And it's not going to be exactly like that cloud up there, as long as it's close. That's all I care. And up here it's kind of like wisped, make it soft edged. And then down here it's a little bit thicker. And so the wetter this is and less pigment, the more it's going to bleed all over. But the thicker the pigment, but you got to make sure you mix it to the consistency and the value that you want. So just definitely try to make the value exactly what you want, the color that you want. And I'm going with like the same colors in the photo, pretty much, because I like them. I think they're very natural. I'm not going to get them exactly like that, of course, because this is a photo. And now I'm just going to go and get a little patch of light up here. I rarely use color by itself, but sometimes when I'm doing the blue sky or the blue under clouds, Verditor is a kind of a nice blue. It's a purpley blue. And that's even almost too vibrant compared to the photo. It's a little bit grayer, but you don't have to go exactly what the photo is. You can change it a little bit. I'll put a little bit again, a little bit of orange in my blue to dull it down. And then I make it thicker so that it stays nice and put where I'm putting it. And then down here it comes down. And I drew this on beforehand with pencil. I did shade. I like shading now to show where my darks are, but I don't do it in the sky because I don't want my sky to have pencil lines in it. No lines and soft edges. And it's very kind of well, it is very important that you do a sky in one wash. Not every time. I mean, there's times where you can do it with a couple washes, but it's just so fresh if you can do it in one wash. If you can go in there and get the whole thing happening and get it all working in one wash, that's the best. That will be your best bet, is to try to get it to be one thing, one time. And as long as you keep it wet, and I don't have my, oh wait, we have my stir right here. I have my backpack, plein air. It's in here. I just found one and it's empty. Oh, great. Darn. Okay, so we're gonna go without it then. Just gonna have to hope that it's still wet. It is still wet. And a little bit lighter as you go away. This is above you, and that's going away, way back there. The clouds get very light. Have to add a little bit more water in my brush since it is not totally wet here as much as it was before. And that way it's also wetting my paper because my stupid sprayer doesn't have any water in it. And if I feel this is not dark enough, then darken it now. It's still wet. It's still wet enough. A little bit of orange, a little bit of verditer blue. Make it a little bit darker. I'm sorry about this big shadow here, but there's nothing I can do about that. It's not my studio. And hey, Karen. Hello, everyone. Hello to you too. Thanks for stopping by. I'm just letting things float. And as I get down here, I could connect this together here a little bit. See, I'm using thicker pigments so I can keep it, floating, and I'm keeping it, letting it soften its own edge. I don't have to soften any edges when it's wet like this. I can just put it in there and it just softens itself. And see how it's brighter up here, and as it goes back, it's going to get duller and lighter. And I will this year, I'm going to take Mr. Carl Bretsky's class again, and he talks a lot about evening skies, sunsets, and just skies in general. And I always say I'm going to take notes, and I never do, and I always forget. I always think, no, I won't forget this time. I won't forget this time. But so this year, I will be taking it again, the class. It's a mini workshop like I'm doing, and I'm taking notes this year, and so that I can hopefully teach you a little bit better on what he talks about, and when it does the skies and it does his evening sunsets, and so it'll be great. So here we're going to get a little bit lighter, and it looks like there's some rays or maybe rain back here. So I'm going to put little rain patches, like when it looks like it's raining and it's like blurry. I'm going to put that in right away too. And then my horizon line for the water. And the water will be a little bit darker than the sky. And right underneath here is the brightest. So let me again put a little bit. And so I'm using pretty thick pigment here, and not much water in my brush. You don't see me going in the water very much because I have water on here. And if I put too much water in, of course, it's just going to bleed all over the place. But if I just take a little bit thick paint, a little bit of thing, I can do all those edges. I put a little orange in there too to dull it. And just go for the opposite. When you're using blue to dull it, make it orange. I'll take a little bit of orange and it'll make it gray and kind of brownish depending on how much orange you put into it. Just make sure you don't put more water on the surface than it's already there, because that's when you get a watermark. Just use thicker pigment. And then down here, the water, let's go for some, a little bit warmer. Let's go for some pink again. Remember I said I had some pink down here? Oh, that's a little bit too dark. Didn't pick up very much pigment. There we go. A little bit more pink in the sky, and it's starting to dry a little bit, so I'm gonna have to get done, or I have to say that's it for now. And then I'm gonna let this dry there to get. I'm gonna wait for the background mountains back there or hills in near Grand Marais, and so we're just gonna then work on the water. Let's just get the water in there. And I studied all last weekend. I studied for 3 days. I studied the water and how it is affected by light and by waves and by big waves and small waves and sideways and it's all the waves. And I think I know how to do them now. We're going to try this year in the plein air event to do a bunch of water scenes. I think I just want to work on some water scenes. I really love it. And I'm going to make this light through here so that it looks like this will be the brightest. It's kind of like that, but not really. We'll see. We'll see how that works. Put a little bit darker here. Let's put some little darker waves, or I mean darker clouds. And now I can put the small ones in too, while it's still wet enough to put these little, and it'll be a little bit harder edged because I'm making my paint thick. So, but there's a bunch of little waves and stuff, and you can even do some hard edges if it dries like that. That's okay. A little bit more of the rain clouds coming down. The rain coming down in some of the clouds. Oh, not right there. That was where I was going to keep it light. See, a lot of times when you do the light right there, then you make sure everything right there would be lighter. And so bring it over here darker. because this sky is what's reflecting into this water. That's what makes the water look like what it is. And if there's a little bit of pink there, then you put pink in the water because this water does not have color in it. So you use what's above it to show what's in the what color the water is. Okay, so then there's also this. It just rained after this, before this, I mean, and so there's all these puddles in the rocks, and so those will be a reflection, and they're very still. So you're gonna get this like you're gonna just paint this and have to re-wet it again. I'm gonna paint this like it is the sky because it's very still. There's no ripples in this water, so it's basically a mirror of your sky. So I'll do the same exact thing I did in the sky and give me some clouds in there. I probably should make it darker because if I can see through, it'll show it's underneath there. But if you're coming from the side, you don't see it underneath as much. It's all about where you're at, how you're looking at it, if there's waves, if there are not waves, if the sun's out directly. I mean, all those things take account when you're doing water, when you're painting water. I put a couple waves in here. Same thing here. I'm just going to put some of this verditer blue, a little bit of orange to make it gray, make these clouds. And so this one would be pretty much that one, right? Get my finger out, get my things out of the way there. Your photo looks like it could be one color painting. Curious if you will paint it all with one color. No, nope. It's all going to be all kinds of colors. Matter of fact, I'm going to make these grays a little bit warmer than they are because they're kind of cool. And so I'm going to make these warmer and push the cool to the back. And there's going to be some green in there, but I have to wait for that to dry. And right now I'm just doing the water. I'm just doing the water to reflect what's in the sky. And I can go into the rocks because the rocks looks like they're going to be darker, right? Remember in our value study, they were darker, so the the clouds and the rocks are darker. Oh, I mean, no, the rocks are darker, not the clouds. All right, so let's do our, I'm not sure if I can do the things back there. Let's go with our rocks now because I have to wait for this to dry to get a hard edge on that. I could get a soft edge on there, but it's still too wet. And so it would just run. And so I want to get a clear shot of doing the three different mountains or the three different hills back there because there's like three different areas. And this is farther back. The next one comes a little bit darker and then a really darker one. And then I'll go right into this greenery. And so while that's drying and I can get that, I'm going to go right in and just put my light parts of these rocks, because it's going to be, these rocks are going to be lighter than this rock right there and this dark green. So let's just go in there. Like I said, I'm going to put a little bit more warmth in these rocks. And I'll do the light parts of the rocks first. And yes, they will be gray and they're not going to be super bright because they aren't really super bright. They are gray. They're gray rocks. And so I'm always telling people that yes, you can make your painting look really, really colorful, but to make it look real, it all depends on your style. Some people like to push the color to like their colors that they do, and that's all great. It's all whatever you do. I'm gonna try to this time make things look very real to what they are in nature, with a little bit of trying to push it a little bit. I'm gonna try to push it up a little bit because that is fun too. It's all depends again so much on how you paint, what your style is, and I'm trying to work on a new style just to see what that's going to be. I don't even know yet what that's going to be, but I'm working on it, and it is going to be a little bit of watercolor and gouache together, which this is, um, I don't buy a different kind of watercolor. I don't buy the gouache. I just use my watercolor here and put white into it, or just add it a little bit thicker, make it a little bit thicker, and it's absolutely fine. And you notice I'm making these warmer, these rocks. A lot of rocks up there are very red, a lot of the rocks, and so maybe not this exact one is that the red that it usually is up there, but there's a lot of red rock up there, like terracotta kind of rock colors. Not so much this one, but I'm gonna do it anyways. So this is the light part of the rocks, and if you can get like certain kind of colors that granulate, that's great for rocks. That's actually a really good thing for doing rocks and when you granulate. A little bit of lavender in there too. And I'm going to put some of the middle tone darks in there right away too. This is the light part. And so when I put the darks in, I want them pretty strong so that they really show the edges of these rocks. So right here into the water, I'm going to put in some really dark darks and take a brown, like a purple brown. This is my purple. Looks like I'm running out of my purple. So I'm going to take a little bit of dark blue, make my own with red, orangey, and blue. Makes purple, but then I add a little bit of orange and violet. That'll make a brown. And so see how dark I've gone with that? And I'm gonna just kind of lay that in as like not the hard edge stuff. This is all the soft edge stuff yet. And I'll make the darks cool. No, maybe I'll work it more because it's my center of interest. And so why did I work on that one? Leave that one alone. I'm still working on this one. So I'm trying to get the dark parts of it. Put some thicker blue in there. And see how it's granulating? Because I'm using it wet in the wet and I'm letting it float on the surface. And I'm getting the sides and I'm putting blue and orange and sometimes I just like pure pigment that's pretty thick and I put it into the water and then I watch it and you can just see it granulate because it's leaving that area and granulating. Just this away here a little bit. And so I work parts. I don't work the whole thing right now. I'm working this whole area is what I'm doing right now. And I'm looking for the general value of this and not about the details, just the general values and trying to find the light part against the dark part. Yeah, definitely you want to do that. And actually I did that wrong right there because that's supposed to be light. So then what you do is you just leave it there and just figure out another way of getting darks on the side of the rocks. Because the side of the rocks usually are darker. And so, oh, look at that, how much I picked up. I put all fresh paint on. I'm not used to putting fresh paint in there. So it's like, that's really thick. But luckily if I have enough water, that's okay. And this little area is a little bit darker, but not that dark. So we're just gonna put a little water in there and let it float about. Any questions? Nope, not yet. Okay. Let's see. Dark there. There's going to be some like the crevices in the rocks and stuff. You'll put those in later too. And this is warm, but this one's going to be the darker one of the two. And so let me put that in. It's going to be a little bit darker. So I'll go with those darks here over there. And I'm just going to, I think third. Oh, there's a little bit of the water showing through right there. And I think the edge is nice and hard. See, it is nice and hard. So this is the lightest part of the dark. And it's very brown. I know it's very brown, but I'm going to add color to it. I'm getting the edge, and it is pretty dark, and so if I want a gray, I can even put light over top of that. I might take some lavender. Watch this. I'm going to put some lavender over top, which is lighter than what I just put down. And it just floats on top, and then it blends in with the rest of the dark that I just put there. And if you add more water too, it will blend together on its own because you're putting water there. Water blends all on its own, blends the pigment together. And then this is going to be a dark green. So let me just go over here. Let's put some pink over here. This is the sun, and this side will maybe be a little bit pinker. If you have questions, please ask. So still kind of, I know I should be working the back to forward, but that's detail. The clouds are these things that they're going to be a little bit more detailed. And so I just doing big areas. And so sometimes you can jump ahead a little bit It's okay. Make this a little bit bluer, like this, a little bit cooler, these rocks. And so I'm just taking Verditor. Verditor is a purpley blue and can be changed to like really instantly with just other colors in the blue then. Just let it float in there. Also, you can do scraping. You know, if you need certain textures for the rocks, you can do certain textures with your brush. And also, like let's say you have a credit card and you want to scrape over it and push things around, you can do that. That's very tricky kind of thing. That's the you know the techniques of some people like to use salt on there, and so that's all techniquey. And I'm more for the teaching you the fundamentals of how to get it first by brush work, and then you can always try those things on different sheets of paper and try the salt and all that kind of thing. But I'm more for just doing the big washes first, figuring it out with your brush. All right, let's do this little dark over here with the green. So I'm gonna mix some quinacridone gold with some kind of blue, um, maybe turquoise blue. Let's try that. Because it's not a bright green, it's more of a gray dark green. So I'm going to take ultramarine blue here, put a little bit of that in there, take a little bit, crack them gold. And that's almost too bright. See how bright that is? And so I'm going to tone it down. What would you tone green down with? What's a complement? Red, right? So you're going to use a little bit of red, and I'll just tone it down. I'll tone down your green a little bit. And this is a bunch of bushes. So this will be the lightest part of this green. And then I'll go even darker later to show that the bush has a dark side and a light side and all that kind of stuff. And so right now I'm just getting the edge to look like the edge. It's soft right here because it's wet right there. And I can also put color into it while it's wet to make it again. Okay, so watch this. I'm going to make some light and dark greens in there. I'm going to take my round brush for that. And I'll just give it a little shape. Like there's a bunch of bushes in there, a lot of weeds and bushes and stuff. So right now it's basically one color, right? And so I'm going to take like maybe a yellow ochre type of color and put it on the front to make it a little bit lighter, a little bit of yellow ochre, and just put it on the front there to make that part look a little bit like it's in front on top because it's lit up right there. And so I'm putting it right into the wet wash. Put that right in there. And then the other parts will be really dark, right? And so what do I use for that? I will use a Prussian blue. I use a really dark Prussian blue with some quinacridone gold. And look how dark this is. And that's a really dark green. And I don't need it to be that dark, but it's going to dry 10% lighter. And when it disperses in the water, it will also get lighter because it's eliminating the amount of pigment then too. When I first when I first touched it, it's really a lot of pigment. So once it blurs out, it's going to also lighten because it's going out a little bit. So let's see, where do we put those darks? We put them underneath things, like underneath here, on top. I think that's on top, underneath the bushes, and definitely on the bottom part. And so, see, we're not doing detail right now, where we are kind of detailing this part of that, but, and I'm making a little bit, I'm overemphasizing the dark so that you can see what I'm doing. Like it's not that dark in the photo, but by me showing you the top part is light, middle going and dark, then it gives it a shape, right? Everything has a shape. And it's away from the sun. Underneath is going to be darker. On top is going to be lighter because the sun's on top showing down. Now it's also dry back here, so now I'll do these little washes. And these are going to be tints of color. So the first mountain will be like the color of the clouds, and so it's on my palette already right here. So the first mountain will come over here on the horizon line, and it's going to be a hard edge, but very light. And so I'm just gonna, and it's more of a tint, it's not floating pigment, it's more of just a tint of color with a little bit of water. And I can regulate it really well because it's just, that's all it is. It's just a little bit of paint with a lot of water. And now the next one, I'm going into these other ones because the next one will be a little bit darker, right? So there's two hills, and if you've painted there before, you know that. And so a lot of times you just do it because you know it's there. You know, it's one of those things. Then I've painted there, and this is my 5th year painting there. And I've painted this mountain, I don't know how many times. And so you know already you know, the shape of it. And so and I memorize things when I paint them. So I know that that's the second one. And then the third one is the one in the campground. This is, or beyond the campground. By the, this is past the campground. I was thinking of when you're on Artist Point, that's when you see the campground. That's part. So this one is just this hill. And now that one will be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna use a little bit of blue and green. So this is like a bluish green, and it's the darker one now in front of that. So you got three different values, and they get darker as you come in forward. And so I'm just trying to separate this one from that one, and then I'm gonna make it look like the trees, the top of the trees are what's important, to look like the shape of the trees back there. And it looks really dark on the line right here right now, but it's gonna lighten up. And then I just put water, I add water to this and I bring it across, and there's the shoreline. And this will go in front of that a little bit. And I'm just going to put water there and add color to this and add darkness to it. That brown actually doesn't look too bad. And so I'm just going to kind of go in here and get the tops of the trees to look like the top of the trees. Are they pines, or if they're just regular trees or rounded? So you get that looking way back there. And you go down to your shoreline. And then I'm going to go right into this part. I'm not even going to show an edge there. I just want that to come together. I'm just going to let that bleed together, so I don't want my eye going in there. When it looks like one wash, it looks better anyways. And then coming out here will be rocks. That's little rocks out there, so I've already got that color on my palette here. And I'm going to put that, see, I made it kind of brownish, violety. And so I'm going to take that same color, put some more violet in there, so it's a little bit more red, violety color. And actually, since it's farther back and I made this a little bit bluer, I'm gonna again use that purple blue with a little bit of brown. And you see it's so bright that it's kind of not showing the detail. The last week I thought it was too dark, so I went out and got a nice light. Next week there will be no Thursday painting, unfortunately, because I'll be up at the Grand Marais event, and Thursday is a big day for handing everything in, and there's no time. I won't have time to do anything to show you, so you have a week off. But if you want to paint, I always in my newsletter I put something there for you to paint, to try, or go out and try to find your own stuff and see what you can do, and then show us on my Facebook page, my artist Facebook page, for you guys to ask me questions about it. And so then here it also is darker, the rocks. And so as I come forward now I'm going to get the hard edges. Now is when I make this stuff look hard edged and it comes forward. Boy, if I could show you this without the brightness. Let me just see if it blends. Maybe a little bit less light. Wow, I just looked into the light. I can't see anything now. I just looked straight into the light. So here's our house wine. I think that comes in a can. Cheers again, guys. 9 paintbrush. It's very good. It was the original house wine. Carbonated wine, bubbly, crisp, vibrant. It pretty much tastes like champagne. All right, so now we're going to our details. You know, we've pretty much got the whole background pretty much done. The water, we could put some more waves in there later for detail. But now we're gonna get the large details, the parts to get the biggest parts. There's still details, but they're the bigger parts of the details. And so I'm just gonna get it over here and kind of separate the rocks and do the side of the rocks, boulders, I should say, because they are pretty much, they're not rocks, they're big boulders. And so I do the side of them to kind of separate what's in front and what's behind things. And so then this one is going to be dark. It's actually still wet. Look at that. It's still wet. And so this one will be dark, and it's not hard edge right now because it's still wet. But this one will be the front one, and this one will be behind it. And so this one can be a little bit darker. I can't believe it's still wet. Must have really soaked it good. And this is the bottom. The water that hits, anywhere it hits the water, that's going to be dark because it's wet, and you're going to see the dark a little bit. Um, you're going to see it darker because it's wet, and you pick up the darks of the sky and everything, and in the water, so it becomes really dark where it hits the water. And then you can put little lines in for the crevices in the rocks, and but not yet. Let's do the big stuff still first. Let's do the big parts of the rocks. And I don't like to have everything just solid one color. You know, I like to put other colors anyway, like this green's got to go in there somewhere. And so you put other colors in there just so that they float in there because they're going to reflect. Like, especially if it's shiny. When a rock is wet, you're going to see a really light, like I just showed in my newsletter. When it's really shiny, the water, when it's wet, it gets really shiny. And so you're going to pick up like a mirror. It's going to mirror the image from above. Let's put some of that green down here. We have to find some purple for this week. I, I don't think I have any in my palette. Must not order enough purple. All right, so and what's our center of interest? Can you know what our center of interest is? It's this area, this whole area right here. So I'm going to go in there and make it look the most important part of the painting. So this is the part that has to look like whatever it is that you're painting. It's got to look like a rock with all the little crevices, and it's got to be the most detail because it's in that center of interest area. It's the reason, that makes this painting look really cool. And the first thing you want the person to look at is this area, these rocks. They're just so neat when you get there. And then, of course, the sky shining into that is always really fun too. And all the little crevices and all the boulders that you gotta watch out when you walk in there. And if you've never been here to the Grand Marais, Minnesota, not Wisconsin, there's also Grand Marais, Minnesota. I mean, Grand Marais, Wisconsin also. It's just right down below where it's in Wisconsin, over across Lake Superior, and it's in the same line as the one in Minnesota is. But the one in Minnesota has a place called Artist Point, which is not this. This is not Artist Point. This is on the other side of the bay. There's like a little inlet where all the boats, breakwaters are, and so that's like this little, I forget what they call those kind of things. The bay. I don't know. Bay. And so on the other side of the bay, this is on the other side. Let me see. And so I'm kind of making this up because I can't see my line work anymore. So I'm just figured this is a big rock boulder. And what you do is you pick out the boulder and then look away from where that's looking away from the light. That's that's dark. And you can make them pretty hard edged because they take really sharp corners. And so it's not like it's rounded. Some of them are. Some of them can be really rounded, but most of them are like really sharp. And so you can do a really sharp, hard edge line where it goes to the dark, because the side away from the light will be the dark part. And before I was trying to get the soft edges and get a lot of pigment floating so that you get granulation. But now I'm all for just really hard edged lines for the veins of the rocks, especially right here. Maybe not the ones back there as much, but these in front here, I want them really hard edged, really, textury, so I can go across it with like a scumble effect of the brush, and you can pick up the texture of the paper even. And I can even put opaques on it if I feel like I think this part should be a little bit lighter, and I can rub it out, but I can also take this gray on gray and just put it right on top of there, and it'll be just as nice, though it is still wet there. I can't get that to dry yet. So there'll still be a soft edge, and it's important that this is a hard edge so that it goes, beyond it will be the other rock. But since it's wet, it will float, so that's a good thing too. And let's make this part dark here. And remember to pick up these colors from the sky. You know, they are reflect into the rock. Rocks a lot of times are very shiny because through the time that they've been there, they get walked on, they get the water hits them, and so it gets smooth. And sometimes when they're smooth, it just wears and wears and wears to the point where it gets shiny, like a street, like a pavement. And then we're going to put reflections into the water too here, because these are little patches of water right there, and they didn't get dark enough. But my sky, they're pretty decent, and even my all my water should be darkened a little bit, which I'll do in a little bit. But let me still go. What time is it? I have to look how much time we have. Oh, it's 7:16. I'm talking a lot here. Oh, I didn't even look if you guys had questions. Sorry. Let's see if you guys got questions. I'm not doing wet on wet right now to the rocks. I do that in the beginning when I want to get the soft edges. The only time I do wet on the wet is when I want soft edges. But then once I do the little parts, if I want to float other colors in there, then I would do that too. Like right here, this is all dark now. But if I don't like it just being that one color that I just put down, like this right here, if I just don't like that, then I float other colors and then it becomes wet in the wet. Let's say I put some orange in there. I float it right into the water, these little spot, and that's wet in the wet. Because I don't want it to sit on top like an oil. I want it to soak in and give it a nice washy look. And so, some of it can be soft edged, some of it will be hard edged, and that's what makes each painting that we're going to do a little bit different. Some people make it all a little bit harder, some people make it all soft, some people blur out a whole area. So it's all up to you what you want to do. As long as you follow your value pattern. Remember, my value pattern is skylight, skylight. And remember, I changed it. So if you came late, I changed it for my no tan. I had these clouds really dark, but I want to make them lighter so that they would be part of the light that goes through here. And then all these rocks will be the dark part of it. So let's put a little bit of blue in here. And so I'm gonna wet it and make this a little bit. This is wet in the wet now because I want a hard edge here, but inside there I want it to float. The only time, I mean, you're always doing wet in the wet, basically, if you think about it. Anything you do when you put water down becomes wet in the wet. It's just, there's sometimes it's a hard edge, sometimes you're using a wet in the wet to get the soft edges inside the rock. But see, it's a hard edge here, but inside here, when I wet it, then I can do wet in the wet and just make things float in there. So it looks good. So it looks like a really beautiful wash. All right, now let's get some reflections in this water. And let's me first make the water a little bit darker. It didn't come out as dark as I wanted it to. So especially in these puddles, they're usually a little bit darker because you can see the bottom of the puddle. And since I'm going to wet all of it first with water, and then I'm going to take the same colors again and just make it a little bit darker this time. And you can also, if you feel like it, you can also put waves in there too. Let's say the wind came up and stuff. Maybe put a few waves in there. And then again, of course, the clouds have to go back in. And so that was the orange and blue. Always remember what you used to get those colors up there in the sky, because this is what it is. Whatever the sky was, then you put it down here. And it's still wet in the wet now. I put the water down and then I work within the wet in the wet wash. So yes, I always work wet in the wet no matter what, because I do the hard edge on dry paper, but once it's wet in the wet, then I just float pigment in there and I manipulate the pigment in there to create the edge I want to make it look like whatever it is that I'm painting, like the sky. And over here, I'm not gonna do anything except do the reflection in here. I'm gonna do a reflection of the rock above it into the water part. And then you can do a little, let's say somebody threw a rock in there or something. You have to put a little bit of like like the water moved a little bit. And that happens, all of a sudden a bug goes on there and even makes a ripple. So I'm just making a little bit of ripple there. And then I can make the dark look like it's looking into the water. And since these are red rocks, like up there, you can put the little warmth inside those shadows. Like actually, you can also show rocks inside there. Like a lot of times you can see into it. But that you'd have to be there to actually see it. And these photographs are it's like you don't really see that because it simplifies everything in the photograph. Now this water up there is just a little bit too light. And so I'm just going to take my big brush again, pick up some of the blue that I had up there, and do just a tint, a wash, just a tint of making it a little bit darker. And also at the same time getting some waves, putting some waves in there, letting the light, sunlight hit right in the middle here and make that light, keep that light. And waves has basically two distinctive light and dark. And then there's a third. Basically, you can do water in three different values. The light part that's shining towards the sun, the part that's shining away. Because a wave is like a little mountain, and the part that's away and looking at you is going to be the dark, and the light part is the other side, which is reflecting the light of the sky. And then there's a middle tone, which is like in between both of those, the dark and the light. And if any time you want to paint something, you want to get really good at it, do what I did this weekend. Just study it. You don't have to even. I painted a few little subject matter or little sketches, and not paintings. I just sketched out there with my brush and like a pad of paper, just to see what's happening, trying to get distinctive little things happening so that the big parts just fall together. It's the little things that you have to look at and see what's happening when the wave is coming up and when it's splashing. Anytime water is splashing too, or there's a part where it's like churned, that's just white. You just put white in there. I would sit there sometimes for an hour just drinking my coffee in the morning and just staring at it and just kind of feel. And a lot of it, when you take a picture of it and then do a stop motion and then just stop it and take a picture, parts of it look like a 60s poster with like what do they call that? It's like swirlies. It was just neat how the waves come together, and then when you just simplify it, it looks very interesting. What time do we have here? All right, not too much longer, but all right, let's see. Now let's get the texture here. It's still wet. Getting very close. Any questions? Any more questions? Questions? I love your questions, guys. So somebody right before I went on, asked me a question about a painting they're doing, and I told them that I will take the send me the photo and I would put it into Photoshop and send her back a what I would do with the image. And I do that for anybody. Sometimes not right away. Maybe it takes a week or two, or it depends on what I'm doing at the time. But I have no problem with doing it, and I don't charge anything for that. It's like I'm a teacher and I like to teach, and if you have a question about something, just let me know about a painting that she's doing. And so I'm more than happy to help you guys out. That's why I'm here to help you guys out and teach you how to paint in watercolor and gouache. Now I'm going to do these little ripples. I'm going to do a little ripple here. And so that's gouache right there because it was just a little bit whiter. And so because I wanted that hard edge, and I'm really enjoying using both right now. And my new style, hopefully next year that I create, because I'm taking next year off from teaching, and gonna really try to capture a style that I want to make it look like a style that when somebody looks at it, they know that it's my style. They can really see. Like that's what I noticed with a lot of famous painters, but they have a style that as soon as you see their work, it's exactly theirs. And I don't really have that yet. I have kind of close maybe, but I want a distinctive style, and I'm gonna be working on it next year, taking off a little bit of like a sabbatical and just gonna work on painting every day and just really try to capture a style. Something I've never had a chance to do because I teach a lot. I will still be teaching online. I'll still be doing my Thursday nights, these Thursday nights, and I will still, if a club asks me to do a what do you call it, a jury their show or something, and they a lot of times have you do a workshop too, then I'll do that too. But it's not going to be my regular year next year of where I go all around teaching everywhere, which was a little bit of this year, but I I did these plein air events this year, and I'm still doing them. I'm going to be doing a lot of them actually. So here I'm taking white now. I'm taking pure white, and I'm just going to put in some of my reflections that I want to, like if the sun is here, then a lot of times the tops of these will have a little bit of light showing through there. And it's nice to have these little hits of light coming through here. And that's a good time to either use masking fluid beforehand or use white paint like I am using now, just to get a hit of light on the light side of these rocks. And like I said, I could have used masking fluid first, or use white paint, or you do whatever you have to do. You know, if you paint around it, some people like to paint around those. That's what makes everybody different. You know, it's what's so neat about this kind of mediums. You do whatever you have to do to make it look like what you want it to look like. And this I'm going to give some waves with white paint. So this is the gouache part again now. And it's not gouache, it's full watercolor, but I'm just using it thicker. And that's what, I mean, it's okay. I'm not using it that thick. It's not going to peel off or anything. It's just a little bit thicker than transparent. So this, and also when the shore hits there's usually a line in between where the shore hits the rock. There's always a little white there. It's like a little bead. All right, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. All right, asking the next questions because this is gonna be it. And then, like I said, next week I'm not here. I will be up in Grand Marais painting this scene probably again. Maybe I've painted it so many times. I'm probably gonna paint more of the water, the the tops of water, and look at how I can even spatter it. You can spatter it to do whatever you want to make the top of the rock look textury, wet, shiny. And it also gives it kind of a oil painting look when you do that with the thick paint. Like this, watch this. If I do this thicker with it'll look like an oil painting because you put on, that's how oil painters work. They put on thick. The very last thing they put on the white thick parts. And so there you have it, guys. Hope you learned a little something. And it's not done. And a lot of people ask me, like, how would you do it outside? Exactly the same way. I paint the exact same. I just don't paint flat. When I'm outside, I paint up on an angle a little bit more and almost straight on because I'm looking down at it. So it's on a little bit of an angle. But I do the same exact thing. I don't have any sun on it. Don't ever paint outside with the sun on your paper. It's got, and also your palette. Just get an umbrella, put it over you. If you don't have a place like this, wouldn't have a place to actually go in there, and I can't go in the shadow or in the shade, so I make my own shade with umbrellas. And so, any last questions? Hello, Sylvia. Thanks for watching. No problem. Thanks, Maria. Maria is teaching a class again, I think, for if you're in the area of where I live and near Lake Zurich. She's also teaching a gouache class again. So if you're in that area, take her class. She's a really great teacher. All right, guys, have a great weekend, great weekend, and I'll see you. I'm not gonna be able to do anything on Sunday either, I think, because that's all it's starting of the thing. So no Sunday painting this week and no next Thursday. And so I'll see you probably the following Tuesday or the following Sunday after that. All right. So we'll see you then, guys. Have a great time and cheers, everybody. Oh my gosh, look at that. Cheers, everybody. We'll